So, what I first want to go over about why the US shouldn't go to the moon is we want to go to the moon based on the fact that we are running out of resources here on Earth. So, they say that the US will run out of energy due to the decreasing amount of fossil fuels. It's stated that the US will run out in 2050 due to the amount that the US uses each year and because the Earth is currently running out. The problem with these predictions is that they are only predictions and they are not based on any statistics. In the past, as I found in an article called Will We Run Out of Energy, published on Institute for Energy Research, there had been predictions in the past as well that also claimed that the US will run out of resources in the near future. In 1865, economist William Stanley Jevons wrote a book warning that the coal supply that had helped make the United Kingdom an economic power was rapidly depleting. David White, chief geologist for the U.S. Geological Survey, also said that in 1919 the peak of American oil production will soon be passed, possibly within 3 years. In 1968, bestseller author Paul Ehrlich proclaimed, "The battle to feed humanity is over. In the 1970s and 1980s, hundreds of millions of people will starve to death despite any crash programs embarked upon now." Just 3 years later, him and his wife, Anne, stated, "We can be sure that with a quarter of a century, mankind will be looking elsewhere rather than in oil wells for its main source of energy." So, as you can see, this isn't the first time that it's been predicted that Earth will run out of important resources, and it won't be the last. Another problem with these predictions is that they are based on the amounts that have been currently discovered. There's still plenty of oil and fossil fuels the Earth contains that have not been discovered. It is impossible to know exactly how much the Earth holds. Mankind has been living off of Earth's resources for millions of years, and we've been okay using Earth's resources now because we find new materials that we can use, and we are constantly making discoveries every year. It is claimed that we have more oil now than we would have that we had over 20 years ago due to all of these new findings. Even if the world was running out of resources, the fact that humans can adapt and change the way we live is a huge advantage for us when it comes to running low on resources. For instance, back in 2004, gas prices suddenly skyrocketed, costing anywhere between $4 and $5 a gallon in the state of California. But even with the high prices, people began to come up with ways of saving money. People were driving their cars less, taking the bus more. Engineers came out with electrical cars and fuel-efficient cars. If we're running out of energy, mankind would figure out a way to either decrease the amount of energy being used or to look elsewhere for a source of energy that we already have here on Earth. So the next problem that people like to argue about why we should go to the moon is that the fact that there is mass amounts of helium-3 found just on the moon's crust. Now, the problem with this is trying to turn helium-3 into a source of energy. The reason why this is a problem is the technology that requires turning helium-3 into energy is way, way in the future. It requires fusion reactors to be able to do this, and scientists and engineers say that at best these fusion reactors wouldn't be created another few decades from now. Which brings me to the point, if we are running low and are expected to run out of resources by 2050, then we wouldn't even be close to having these fusion reactors ready, which would be pointless to even try to make these fusion reactors to use helium-3 in the first place. So, which, okay, so I need to figure out what to do. So finally, say that we do have fusion reactors. Say that we knew how to make helium-3 into a reliable energy source that could power the U.S. We still have the fact that we all signed a space treaty. So the space treaty keeps any country from going up onto the moon and doing whatever they want with it. The moon is nobody's property. Nobody owns the moon. So an article I found published by the U.S. Department of State, the reason that the space treaty was even designed was due to President Eisenhower. So between 1959 and 1962, the Western powers made a series of proposals to bar the use of outer space for military purposes. Their successive plans for general and complete disarmament included provisions to ban the orbiting and stationing in outer space of weapons of mass destruction. Addressing the General Assembly on September 22, 1960, President Eisenhower proposed that the principles of the Antarctic Treaty be applied to outer space and celestial bodies. Now, say that the space treaty say we annulled the space treaty, and we decided to go up to the moon and get all of the helium-3 that we wanted. Now, because there is no space treaty and because nobody has to abide by any laws up in outer space, who's to say that any of these other countries aren't going to go up to the moon and test nuclear bombs and do whatever they want to the moon and end up destroying our nearest body